Hey there. Hello, I'm Sandy Rakowitz. So this morning I am talking about letting go of a loved one. And it's 2 weeks ago that I said goodbye to my own father. And it's hard to believe that it's 2 weeks. And so as I've been going through this process and navigating these times, I wanted to share some of the things that have been happening because they're often things that people don't talk about, how to navigate this in a way that I believe is from a different perspective than how we often frame this loss process and what happens energetically. I had a couple of days before my dad passed, I had a very profound experience, and there have been several, but this was really interesting. It was either during my meditation or sometime afterwards. I had this experience where all of these connections were releasing across. I was most aware around my head. I'm sure that it was happening in other areas, but I was very aware of this around my head. And I think I became aware of it because I was feeling fairly spacey. And I was curious about that. I had a fair amount of work to do that day. And I had spent quite a lot of time with my dad prior to that, and on this particular day. So I was following what was happening because I do that, and I track the energetics of things. And as I was watching and feeling and experiencing that, I saw that they were all of these, it was like threads and strands of connections. You could call them attachments. They're called by many names. Cords, streamers. There were some cords, but mostly what I was very aware of at that particular point were all of these threads, and it was like all across, all in through here. It was on an energetic level, and it was connected with my dad and also the family, because it's how everyone is connected. And a lot of the phrases that we use in everyday terms really do relate to the energetics of what's happening. And as I was having this awareness and emotions that were coming along with it, I realized that when you were preparing for someone's death, if you know that there's a death coming, and afterwards, these are very common experiences. People feel spacey, feel like can't hold their focus. For instance, those are really common things, and I'm sure those of you who are watching who have had the loss of a loved one can relate to this, right? And this is different than sort of if you're normally feel some level or range of spaciness or difficulty focusing. There's a different quality to it. And I realized in that experience that there's really important reasons for this happening on every level. And it was occurring organically. I wasn't trying, quote unquote, trying to let go. It was one of the levels is that as these ways of being in contact shift, which it happens automatically with anyone, whether it's an animal or a person. The ways in which you are connected energetically have to change because that person or that animal is leaving their consciousness, their soul, however you want to call it, is leaving their physical body. And so the way in which we've been in contact, and the ways in which many, not all, and many of the ways in which we've known our world, the way that I talk about it with clients, I have worked for many, many years with people with loss of loved ones and pet loss. And one of the ways that I describe that is the weave and the weft, the way that everything has been woven together is changing. And it has to. And so the way that when we feel that pain, we are looking through our habits to the particular way in which we've been connected. And that has changed. And so the losses that you've had that are not yet resolved, also they're connected in. Whenever you have one loss, you will experience whatever is in that labyrinth. And we often get stuck there. And I've spent years, a lot of my life, stuck in those places. So I'm very aware of them, and I'm very familiar with them. And it's very conscious choice on my part to not continue in the same ways, to really very deliberately, with deliberate intention, to grow beyond how I have been through those losses before, because it's excruciating. And to me, I would go into depression and anxiety and gets very stuck and lost and feel directionless and not know my purpose and just get lost because I'm in the loss of those connections. That's where all that I knew to focus with, all that I could navigate at that time. And this, with each passing of someone, we have the opportunities to understand, to really have connections in ways that can open us further. And I know that there's a lot of new agey speak around all of this. And I have really felt and experienced it, and this growth and these changes, and I feel it. I'm in it right now. I can feel day to day when I allow myself to be in this perspective, which is not all the time. There are times when I am sobbing and am in deep grief and can feel those places, those ebbs of depression kind of nipping and dipping into it. And with very deliberate intention, I don't want to stay there. Not because I don't want to feel, because I'm still feeling, but because I want to learn. I want to stay in connection with how my dad is now. And that's different. It's just different. And I know that it's much more than just his physical body, that he is far more. And I say that and I can feel him. It's so much greater than us and our physical body. And he's, the feelings and the senses that I'm getting right now is this incredible sense of freedom. And it's not for lack of love for all of us in the physical. But this is his journey at this point. And so this feels precious. And I can be in this contact in this way. It's not just me. We all have this opportunity. I speak these experiences to hopefully be an inspiration so that you, and affirm that you know that you can also. And it's precious. It's precious in ways that are different than the times that we spent when he was in his physical body. And when those streamers and cords release, those attachments into the physical, from the physical, we have the opportunity to see what else is here. And that, again, that is the place where we often get stuck, because we just feel the pain of the loss and we just stay there. And I like to use that awareness and my underlying intention, because something that I value very, very deeply, it's like one of my highest priorities, is that I will grow through whatever it is I'm in. And that I will grow beyond how I've known to be, because I can see, it's all filled with beliefs about how we are, because I can see and I feel and I know that those beliefs create constrictions. And that if it's not fun and it doesn't feel good, and if it's filled with pain, then it's not filled with forward movement. It may be the forward movement coming up against the places that are stuck, which is really what that is. The places that are saying, no, you can't go forward, you can't feel that. Just before, here's an example, just before my dad passed, a few days, I was, I think it was the same day, it was a very powerful day. So part of me on some level knew that he was getting ready to go. I mean, we all knew that he was getting ready. I didn't think it would be as quick as it was. It was a few days. But that day I was scheduled to do a number of recordings with Linda Tellington-Jones, who's the founder of Tellington Tea Touch. We're doing this online program, which is amazing, called Co-Creating Heaven on Earth. It's coming up. And it's an online program. And we were doing it was our first day of recordings of 24 inspirational teachings. And the focus was how we do what I'm talking about, actually, through the gateway of Tea Touch. And as she was reading one of these messages, or just before, I just started sobbing. And she said that she wanted to read it while I was feeling what I was going through. And we didn't actually record this because I was just sobbing. But as I heard her reading about the connection with the divine and the connection with nature, and how this is all the connections with all that is, I know that to be true. I've experienced it. I knew it was my dad is part of that. I know that I am part of it. I know that we're each part of this larger source energy, what I call source. Some people call God. It's called by many, many names, right? And I was in the loss part. I was feeling the loss of the connections of how we've been in contact in the physical realms. And that sobbing, really sobbing, helped me let that stuff move and release. In the past, I have been in times where I felt like I couldn't stop the crying. This wasn't, it kind of reminded me of that a little bit when I was in it, but I did start to come out of it and started to, as I talked with Linda, it was amazing timing, and talked about the process, the shifting in me started to, hi Francesca, started to move. And we continued recording. We got several recordings done. And I felt so differently afterwards, because it was lifting me into a different place than where I had been, which was in the recognition of the separation, in the recognition of the sense of loss, in the recognition of my dad's not going to be here in the same way. And I'm losing him as I've known him, and shifting into a very different experience. Now, I wasn't able, I'm not always able to sustain that, but shift. But doing things like this, I take that awareness and my intention, that very deliberate intention of growing and moving and understanding and maintaining contact. That's the thing. It's the maintenance of contact. It's the sustaining. It's the allowing in. We will do whatever we can as human beings to avoid pain. It's just a fact. And it's part of our human condition. And so one of the things that I do that's soothing and that I encourage people to do, it's soothing and it's opening, and it helps me and others be in the intuitive process versus the logical. That's the other thing that all of this releasing was doing, in that sense of spaciness does, is it takes you out of the logical. It's like you can't even be in the reasoning logical. And it's very frustrating for people in our culture, for people who are driven by results. And as intuitive as I am, I also have a lot of places where I am very driven. And I love to see results, and I love to see change. And it has flip sides, and I love logic. And I'm highly intuitive and creative. And I appreciate having a balance. And when in this state, which I'm still in at times, there's certain things right now I just can't do. I'll try it again, and I just have been saying to people, my brain's not working there. What that experience did with that awareness and really drinking in to, like, going into that experience a few weeks ago is it helped me release the self-criticism about not being able to focus during this time, or not being able to hold a logical sequence of things, or, like I left my mom's and I forgot my keys, and I forgot like probably 3 or 4 different things, went back different times, even though I checked through the room, even though, how that goes. It's also a metaphor, like leaving parts of me behind with my mom. But this piece about we organically somehow are designed for those attachments to release and to help us go into this altered state, basically, so that we have more opportunity to be in contact differently. It's during this time when we have those opportunities. So one of the things that I do is I paint and I doodle and I draw, because it's self-soothing, which is always a good thing. But it also helps me be in contact with divine consciousness in a very different way. It helps me bypass my mind when I allow it. And so I'm going to show you 2 of my paintings from very recently. This one was after one of my recordings with Linda, where she took us on a fairy journey, a journey with fairies, flower fairies. And I was led into the center of it was very yellow, into the center of a sunflower. But the focus was really on going into the center. And it was a bit of a Alice in Wonderland-like experience, but it felt good. and it was like I was just going deeper, being drawn deeper through this yellow, into this energy of light, really. And what I realized after I was journaling is it was a sunflower, and this looks like a sun because I wanted to draw the sunflower, the rest of it, and I kept being drawn to just work with the colors of the yellow. And then this fairy showed up, who I want to show you closer because I just so love her. I've never drawn fairies before, but I was connecting with that energy. And look at how like her beauty just came through. I love the colors in her wings and her little expression. I've never been able to draw expressions like that. And her beautiful hands and all of the like feathery, like billowy kinds of things. It's kind of like a angel fairy is what it feels like to me. And then all these beautiful colors. And it's really, to me, it's that expression. It's finding that, it's allowing the contact and expression in different ways. And then I did this other one, which I think is kind of funny, beautiful and funny. And I'll show you in a few seconds. But I want to preface all of this, that I grew up feeling and hearing that I, A, wasn't creative, and B, or that's the sense that I got, and B, that I couldn't draw worth a hoot. I mean, I tried when I was younger, and I just had so much shame around it, like so many people, and felt all my life like I couldn't, no, don't. And I'd try and draw horses, you know, because I love horses, and I'd try and draw cats, and they always come out looking funny, and I had so much self-criticism about it. Oh my gosh, so much. But what's been happening more and more is I get to this place of like, I really don't care. It's not because I'm trying to become an artist, although that is blooming up inside of me now. But I'm doing this because it feels good, and because I love being with colors, and I love seeing what comes out when what that creative expression what wants to happen. And I started, because I felt like I couldn't draw, I started collaging because they were ready-made pictures. And I would have something in mind and something else totally would come out. And it was always this beautiful, positive, not always, but there were these positive, uplifting messages that were coming through that I would realize afterwards, you know, that all the words that would come out, all the images that I wanted to put together ended up having these messages. And so now I'm painting, and the same thing is happening. It's just through paints and colors. And so this is the one that I just did. And I realized this morning when I was looking at it again that her head's rather large in comparison to her body. So my energy is up, you know, reaching into that spiritual. And but that's okay. It's fun. It's good to see. And I just love the colors. They're soft, but it's this focus. Where I started was the focus with the yellow, and all of the rest emerged from there. And I was sad last night when I started to paint, and I painted on purpose. Like I do that at night on purpose to shift and work with wherever I've been, like any residue from the day that might not have felt right or good, and so that I can shift those, and myself, my thinking, and my energy before I go to bed. And once again, you know, what came through was different than the sadness, and it tells me that I'm allowing that connection with the divine. And I was thinking very much about this experience that I'm sharing with you today, about all of these attachments leaving, and this is who showed up. And it's very much about receiving. To me, it's very much about receiving and letting go, both, and taking in and allowing my heart to be in contact with my dad and all that is. And I just love the two together. They tickle me. And so that's the purpose, you know. It like I look at these now and I don't feel the sadness when I look at them. I feel the contact and connection. And so they are like instruments. So those are the things that I want to bring forward today, is that connection, finding the ways that you allow those connections with divine consciousness, however you call it, and find soothing ways and with each passing, I gain something different, and that's a whole topic that I wanted to bring in today, but I'll wait for another time. But what I'll say about that is, you know, I might just as well talk about it because I'm talking about it and not wait. Like when my cat Magic died, I was feeling and experiencing a tremendous amount of guilt and shame, a lot of guilt about how things happened. And she was only 2, and she had, there was a lot of things around it. And when I went into connection with her and started drawing, all of the messages from her started to come through. She actually guided me through releasing. It was so powerful. I just sat there for hours, actually, just writing and doodling about with her messages. Like every time one of those self-critical thoughts came up, she was right there leading me through releasing that. And, with this passage, at this point, the parts that I can see are that releasing of those attachments in a different way, I'm in a different place, and being able to actually maintain this contact in a way that is definitely much more gentle than how I've ever experienced a loss before. And I knew a few days before he passed, I just got this wave, and I think it was actually after I was recording with Linda that one day, a few days, it was actually that we were recording the day before I said goodbye to my dad, and a couple of days before he passed. And I just got this a good flooding of experience of, I'm going to be okay through this. I will be able to navigate this. He's okay. My family's okay. And this is just what is right now. And it's just true. And it's really amazing when I look back on my life and I look at the depths of despair that I've gone to through so many losses. I mean, it's well over 40 between people and animals, that it's remarkable. And so know that different ways are possible, and that the contact and the moving through whatever it is that you're in, whatever type of loss you're experiencing, that there are ways to move through it, and be able to learn and grow and still honor the person or the animal that you love so dearly. So, namaste, and I will see you next week.